My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. Today is Monday, March 11th, 2024. We are at Riviera Beach Preparatory Achievement Academy, Riviera Beach. I have students with me today. I've got Moses, Amari, Kavan, London, Andrene, Angel, Brandy, Ariel, and Paul. Okay. And sir, what is your name?
I'm Captain Evan Lowe.
Okay. And when did you enter the military?
I joined February 12th, 2016.
Okay. What were you doing prior to the service?
Prior to that, I went to college. Once I completed my degree, at the time in between my commissioning, and going off to my basic officer leadership course, I was a valet manager at the Hilton in Virginia Beach.
Okay. Why did you decide to go into the Army versus the other several services?
So growing up, I was in an all-Navy family, and that was originally where I thought I wanted to go. The college that recruited me the hardest for football back in the day, they only had an Army ROTC program. So my thought going in was join the Army. If I don't like it, change over to the Navy. But ever since I've joined the Army, I've just fallen in love with the job, the people, and what I'm able to do while in uniform.
Nice. Okay. Where were you when you entered the service?
So I joined out of Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia.
By the way, what was your major in college?
I was a communication major.
Got it.
And from there, went from Newport News, Virginia to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for my basic officer leadership course as an artilleryman.
How long was basic training?
So the cadet assessment, that was 4 weeks long, and then my initial officer course was 4.5 months.
Okay. All right. That's OTS?
So different. We have for ROTC, which is the program I went through for commissioning.
Right.
It's now called Cadet Summer Training. When I went through, it was Leadership Development Assessment course. That was a 4-week program.
And where was that? Same
That
place?
was Fort Knox,
Fort Knox in Tennessee.
Kentucky.
Kentucky, yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, I know. Any casualties throughout basic training? How was the food and how did you get along with your peers in the offices? Or training instructors?
Yeah, no casualties. It was the first time they ever ran it at Fort Knox, so ever since 2015, it's continued to run there. So we had a lot of transition with moving it from Fort Lewis in Washington. So it was very interesting seeing the difference in the way it's ran now compared to how it was ran back when I went through. Got along great with everybody in my squad. Any difficulties, we all came together and powered through it. No problem at all. Everybody graduated. Everybody performed well. We were all better being able to work off of each other. And my instructors were mainly either senior non-commissioned officers or junior officers, freshly minted lieutenants. They all brought different levels of experience and background. So I learned a lot from them, and overall had a great relationship with most people there. That was in 2015. It's 2024 now, and I still keep in contact with a handful of those individuals I went through with.
Nice. Where was your first duty station?
My first actual duty station was Fort Polk, now Fort Johnson, Louisiana.
What was your job there?
So I'm a field artillery officer. My first job was a fire direction officer. So I was the guy in charge of the fire direction center, and our job was essentially to tell the guns where to put their muzzles up, down, left, and right in order to hit the target at whatever distance it was. Being on 155 millimeter artillery, we can go anywhere from 30 kilometers out typically. So a lot of math involved in that.
How many miles is 30 kilometers?
Roughly 20.
Okay. All right. Any memorable instances during that tour?
When I was at Fort Polk, it was interesting being a brand new second lieutenant and immediately being thrown into a leadership position. 0 days on staff, they said, here is the worst fire direction center in the battalion, fix it. And so that was a great leadership challenge in teaching myself how to grow up and, having to rely on my own studies, my own will to be able to push others to better themselves. I had some great non-commissioned officers who buckled down and helped us become what ended up being the best fire direction center prior to our deployment.
Okay. All right, so first tour, how long was that?
So we were in Iraq I was there for about 9 months, left right before my 10th month.
You in Iraq?
Yes.
For how long?
9 months.
Same job?
So I started as a fire direction officer, same job as before. They didn't want to break that continuity right before deployment, so the first 3 months we were all throughout Iraq, started off in Erbil up to Tal Afar, pushed out west into Syria. After that 3rd month, some of the fighting started to come to a bit of a lull. So at that point, they switched me over to be a fire support officer, where I joined Delta Company 230 Infantry, and we were tasked with guarding the Baghdad Diplomatic Support Center, which is where the airport is.
Okay. Any casualties?
No, not in that rotation.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I was at the BDSC for 6 months. So 3
While
months.
you were there for 6 months, did you get to travel anywhere else?
Not during that time.
Not during
Most
that
of my traveling happened during those first 3 months. Like I said, got to see all of central, northern, and northwest Iraq and all the bases along there. Created our own PAAs out for any missions that we had, PAA being position of area artillery. And my platoon, just wherever they needed artillery support, we would pick up, move there, fire, continue supporting our maneuver elements for however long, whether it was a week, a month. And we did that all the way up until a train station in northwest Iraq, firing into Syria.
Okay.
And then once I was at the BDSC, it was QRF missions, quick reaction force in case of any need for immediate assistance, base security, and escorting missions.
Okay. What was it like being in Iraq? Dealing with the people on the civilians, the economy, the military, opposition. What was it like?
I would say it was very clear where NATO put their hands. You would see it immediately from just the infrastructure and facilities compared to where we hadn't reached out to. What we would consider pretty obvious quality of life improvements everywhere that we went. When I was in Iraq in the BDSC, I was a contracting officer representative, so I frequently worked with Iraqi contractors. They would come on base, I would escort them. Essentially, I just had them performing maintenance on vehicles that we had to utilize. And seeing the quality of even their life, the people who worked contracts with the U.S. government. I mean, night and day difference between what most of the civilians out there did. So it really gave me an appreciation for what we have here in America compared to other places I've been.
Gotcha. Where was your next duty station?
After that, I went back to...
How many years have you served so far, anyway?
I've been in for 8 total years.
Okay.
So initial training in Fort Sill, then I went to Fort Polk, now Fort Johnson. Went back to Fort Sill for about 1.5 years. What I did there, I was the Field Artillery Engagement Officer. So my role was to talk to cadets about everything that I did as a lieutenant. As a lieutenant, I did every job you could have as a fire support, or as a field artillery officer, everything from fire direction, fire support. I was an infantry platoon leader for a little bit also, and also an XO. So they asked me and one other artilleryman to be kind of the representative of what my branch was and what you're able to do. So I did that for about 1 year before I went to the Captain's Career Course. That was during 2020 COVID lockdowns and all the madness that happened during that time. And then after that, I ended up in Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay, all right. Okay, where are we at chronologically as far as your succession?
So I pinned captain in November of 2019. March of 2020, I started my Captain's Career Course. September of 2020, I moved to Fort Campbell, and that's where I began kind of my initial captain years while being in a force comm unit.
Okay, what was the next duty station?
That was my last duty station previous to where I am now in Jupiter, Florida. While I was in Fort Campbell, I served in 3 different brigades. kind of a weird movement. I was definitely a journeyman. My first 4 months were all in South Korea in Camp Humphreys. When I came back, I continued serving the same brigade. I was in a 217 Cav, which was an Apache squadron. I served as their fire support officers and planning and coordinating all their fires in synchronization with their aircraft to keep them safe from air defense artillery. Essentially, was mainly what my function was. From there, I went to 1st Brigade, and I served as an assistant operations officer for about 4 months, and from there, 3rd Brigade, their artillery in 3320th, they needed someone to be their new headquarters battery commander. Some things happened there where some captains they thought that would take the place were ineligible to take that command, and so they brought me over, and that's where I did my first command, was in the Rock Suns over in Fort Campbell.
Okay, all right. And after that?
And after that, I ended up here. So I did a year of command in Fort Campbell. Once I did that, I'm now the company commander for Jupiter Army Recruiting. And so the area that I'm responsible for is essentially on my northern end, I have Sebastian, Florida. On the southern end, Boca Raton. And I go all the way out west into the Glades, into Okeechobee. So in Miami Battalion, I have the largest land mass to cover. It's an interesting assignment, very different than being in 10th Mountain Division, 101st Airborne Division, but nonetheless a challenge. And so,
Okay. During your time overseas or just on regular duty, have you ever had an issue staying in touch with your family and friends?
I would say friends more than family. I come from a very supportive family, supported my decision going to the military. Most of my family served in the Navy, as I mentioned earlier, but they've done a good job. Friends, it's, I'm that guy that comes around twice a year, maybe,
Okay.
Being from Virginia Beach, not a lot of Army stuff out that way unless it's over in Fort Eustis, but
Right.
for an artilleryman, there's not much jobs available, so it's a little hard to keep in touch with them, but I don't hold it personally. I'm a busy man.
Gotcha.
And, communication goes both ways, so if I had to complain about it, then it's kind of my fault too,
Right. How was the food through the service?
Varying. Varying is a fair way to put it. Going a month or more straight with nothing but MREs, the meals ready to eat. Varying flavor and quality and such, and especially when you're deployed, you can end up in some of the really nicer areas where they have civilian contractors preparing your food and stuff like that. So, we stayed fed. I would say the largest my body changed was on that deployment to Iraq. I think at one point I got down to 178 pounds, and at another point during that same 9-month period, I got up to about 210 pounds. So. You could tell when I was eating better than others.
Okay.
But, truly no complaints. When times weren't as great, we all embraced it together, and when times were good, we all celebrated together. So.
Gotcha. Anybody have any questions so far?
Yes.
Hold on. What, Renee? Go ahead.
Do you have wife and children?
I do. So I have 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and my current wife, her and I are celebrating the birth of our son this June.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else? Angel?
Yeah, I have a couple. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How are you feeling today coming in?
I feel fine. Not
This-
camera shy.
This is our resident nurse practitioner.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sitting at 97.3 degrees like I normally am. No cough, no fever. Daylight savings messed up my sleeping a little bit, but overall
Yeah,
good.
that
Just
messed
drank
up
an extra
all
cup of
of
coffee this morning. But no, I'm good. Thank you for asking.
That's great. Of course. Does the constant moving affect you in a negative or positive way?
So it really just depends on your phase in life. So,
How long have you been stationed here now?
so I've been here for 8 months.
8 months.
Yes.
Okay.
So not very long. I would say having good communications with your family is important. So right now, I'm already planning my next move. Right, June of 2025, I'll be going somewhere else. That's the conversation my wife and I are having. And preparing for the kids, we know it's going to be essentially one of three places. Are they going to be as nice as Jupiter? Probably not. But that's just a conversation we have to have.
Right.
Thankfully, the Army marketing place has changed the way that we do our assignments. So the officers that go into that pool have a say on where they go, which has been great. And part of how I got this job. I got this job, essentially I was called on the phone after 3 weeks in 20-degree or lower weather in Kentucky, being outside the entire time, doing a training rotation. They told me it's sunny and 75 in Florida right now. Do I want to come there next year? And the answer was yes immediately. I'm so tired of being cold. That was just like the number one thing for me. I was like, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to be warm and happy. And I definitely found it here. But no matter if it's a place that I've loved more than another, like there's great things everywhere. People complain about Louisiana's the biggest one people complain about. But the food there is amazing. It is super hot. It's absolutely. I stepped outside, my glasses fogged up immediately, and I was like, oh, okay, we're not in Oklahoma anymore. But no, there's good things in every place you go to. Would have I ever chosen to live in Louisiana if I picked a civilian route? Probably not. But do I have an appreciation for the culture, the food,
Exactly.
and just everything that it provided me? Yes. So, moving can be hard, but if you go about it with a good attitude and you just embrace where you're at and you bloom where you're planted, I think it's an amazing opportunity just wherever you go.
I love the positivity, honestly. So what are some things in the Army that you think people don't talk about enough and should be discussed more?
I would say definitely the benefits. Maybe that's just the recruiter in me talking. But truly, I look at my life today and I think about 16 to 18-year-old me. And if I told him where I am right now, I would probably laugh at that guy's face. Because there's no way that when I was that age, I'd imagine where I am today. I've owned multiple homes, very happy, have a good life, have an amazing wife and kids. I've experienced many things that most people will never get to in their entire life. I get paid to jump out of planes or rappel out of helicopters. I blow things up for a living. It's awesome. I had my bachelor's and my master's degree totally paid for by the Army. Right now I'm trying to transition to Army marketing where they would pay for an MBA at an Ivy League school potentially. Right? Things that I would have laughed at as a 3.0 student in high school. I cared about football back then. That's all I cared about. If I told you that I was applying to Harvard and Cornell next year, I'd probably, I would never would have believed you. But the opportunities that the Army has for its people, I'm learning more every day in this job. Things that I'm still learning 8 years in. So just sitting down and understanding the avenues that are open to you that you never would have had before, I think that we don't talk about it nearly enough.
What else you got? You got one, Ariel?
I got a question real quick.
Question?
Hold on.
I see.
Just,
Quiet.
This is my final one.
I'm sorry, Kaban, will you?
I was asking a question real quick.
Go ahead.
What you mean about paying for the MBA?
Yeah, so the Army is opening up its own marketing enterprise. It started in 2019, I believe, and so they want people with marketing backgrounds to be able to move into it and just help market the Army better, right? So in recruiting, I'm more in the sales force, right? If you're gonna think about it as a civilian
So
organization.
you go out and look for people?
So that's what I do in this current job. In a marketing role, what I would do is better help provide information, whether it's through content creation, through things like your Instagrams,
Right,
Facebook,
right,
things
right.
like that. But then you also have like campaign strategies. So again, I'm a football guy, right? I'm from the Southeast, so I love watching the SEC football. If you turn on CBS for their primetime games, you're going to see Army commercials. That's all done by like the marketing department.
Mhm.
And so what they do is they want qualified candidates to be able to go, so they send people to MBA programs that accept them. And we have partnerships with places like Harvard, William & Mary, UT Austin, just a few of those that come straight to mind, right? Columbia's another big one. And so essentially the deal is for every 1 year that you spend at school, you owe 3 years on the back end. I'm at 8 years now and I get to retire at 20 years. So if I spend 18 months to 2 years in graduate school, then I owe the Army 5 or 6 years. Great, I was already planning on doing that, but now I get an MBA on top of that, so that's what, 2 master's degrees and a bachelor degree that I paid no money for. So, you know, intrinsically, I'm gonna stay in the Army anyways, but now it's done something for me, and now I wanna give back.
Right.
So the knowledge and skills that I'm being provided, I wanna be able to give back and teach other people about the things that have been presented to me. My life's better because of being in the Army, and I want everybody's life to be better for it.
Wait,
I have one more.
I know,
What's the
let's
last
hold
one?
on, hold on. Okay, have you mentioned all the places that you've traveled?
I have not, so let me just run through it chronological. Started off, went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, plenty of time to travel to Texas, places like that. In Louisiana, again, we're right next to Texas, the bordering state. Being able to see all the culture and things there. Louisiana has more culture in its state than probably any other state that I've ever been to. And I'm from Virginia, where the country started. So that says a lot. From there, you know, went to Iraq. I was in Turkey for 4 days on the way to Iraq. Stopped in Canada. Been to Kuwait, Germany. Fort Campbell is on the border of Tennessee, so I lived in Tennessee for about 1.5 years, and then I moved just because of changes in the housing market. So I sold my house for $100,000 over what I bought it for, which is pretty awesome. VA loan, it's also a big benefit of the Army, which I haven't talked about. And I moved on post in Kentucky, so I lived in 2 different states there. Went to South Korea, Washington State, and I believe that's it for my
Okay.
Army travels, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Give me 2 of your most memorable experiences from your service to date.
Okay. I would say my earliest proud moment was taking that fire direction center that, you know, they were abysmal, honestly. As soon as I got them and watching them be molded into excellent, proficient, lethal leaders. Because in artillery, you have to be fast, you have to be accurate, and you have to be lethal.
Right.
I remember always being told when I was a young cadet, you know, your soldiers are going to take on your personality. And, you know, me, I'm just a 18 to 20-year-old kid. I'm thinking, no, there's no way. These are free-thinking adults. They're not just going to turn into me. Absolutely no. Wrong. They absolutely did.
Okay.
You know, a very, you know, I'm an athlete, so I have a bit of a swagger and confidence about me. Some might call it arrogance. It's fine if you do. And I watched them develop it. These quiet, meek kids just turning into crap-talking dudes. They know that they know their job better than everybody else around them does, and they wanted everybody to know that they were better than they were. And I'm just looking around one day, and I'm like, wow, these guys, they just kind of took on me and my chief.
Your persona.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
me and my chief, we were both college football players, and I could just kind of see it in their swagger. These like little skinny, raggedy kids talking crap like they're 240 pounds. It was awesome. I loved it.
Did you feel like you had everything that you needed as far as supplies to do your job throughout the military to date?
I would say I was either equipped or taught how to adapt if I wasn't equipped with what I needed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that made myself and my team successful is just being adaptable. So, you know, sure, on paper I'm supposed to have, you know, this slew of equipment, or I'm supposed to have, you know, X amount of rations or whatever, but, you know, life happens, the enemy has a vote, and we were always able to, you know, adapt and overcome and be successful no matter what life threw at us, essentially. And I think it's a great lesson for not just military service, but life in general. Just be able to come back from every time you fall down.
You got a question?
Yeah. How do you handle mental health now, and what have you learned emotionally to help yourself?
So I've learned that I'm an internal stressor. I'm in a leadership position. I have been since I joined the Army, like I said, day one, go lead these troops. So I had a hard time letting it ever show that,
Right.
I was stressed or I, had my own personal problems. And as I've grown older, what I've come to realize is that makes you a person, not just an idea. Because I remember looking at my commanders as a young lieutenant, and Captain Carroll could do no wrong, right? But as I've grown older, it's I see him as a person, and I know me as a person. Like I said, I had a previous marriage, so I know I'm divorced and stuff, right? Like, it is what it is. We all go through life things, and being more than just this idea of what perfect on paper right now. None of us are. So being able to understand what your people go through on a personal level, or at least them seeing you as human, I feel like has gone a long way. And being able to connect with my soldiers and just understanding them better because they feel more comfortable in telling me who they are, their problems, their issues. Sometimes I can solve it. Sometimes I can just hear about it and let them know that I'm there to support them. But I think it's been huge in my personal growth and as a leader also.
It is. That's amazing, honestly. And the fact that people can be comfortable towards you and you give that type of support is just amazing within itself.
Thank you.
Okay, did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general? I should say, has your military experience influenced your thinking about war, about the military in general?
So I would say yes and no. I think that my time in combat definitely helped mold me as a person, and I learned a lot about myself. That first time a bullet flies by your head, that's when you really realize, how much that training comes in handy.
Okay.
As they say, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face the first time, right? So that's when you really find out who you are and what you're about.
Right.
But what I'd say is, every combat is different. If you look at World War I versus II versus Korea, Vietnam, we all had different challenges. So do I think that everything we did in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, do I think it's going to prepare us hand in hand for our next combat? No. Do I think that you need combat-proven leaders to help bridge that gap in knowledge on, this is how we have to do this combat? Sure. Do we know what the next one's going to be? No. But we have to be adaptable and be able to overcome no matter what gets thrown our way.
Okay. Anybody else have any more questions? We good? What?
So when you go to war, like, did some of the things that you've seen traumatize you?
Have you ever been in combat?
I have.
You have?
Mhm.
There you go.
Yeah, so there are definitely some things that have kind of stuck with me.
I'm curious, well, it's part of the script actually. Number of casualties? And was this in Iraq?
Yes, there's in Iraq. No one that I was ever in my command lost life. Now, in the brigade, there was, for
How many
example,
people were in your command?
None from my command. In the
How many
brigade-
people were in your command?
Oh, in my command, it ranged from 8 to 25, just depending on the job that I had at that point. Like I said, I worked 3 different jobs on deployment, a little irregular, but
Right.
yeah, none of my people were hurt. They all came back in one piece, which was, it's what you always want, right? In the brigade, there were a few casualties. I remember an IED caused a double amputee and someone else to die during the strike. They came on to my PAA, where I was stationed at. We had a Roll 2 Echo, which essentially what that is a mobile surgical team was there because the mission we were on, we were in the most austere environment. So if anything happened, we had a surgical team on site. So I remember being there and helping that double amputee, putting tourniquets on his legs so he didn't bleed out. But what I will say about that is, I also watched that double amputee lead our brigade run 9 months later after his accident. So, you know, do I remember, you know, the blood and damage that happened then? Yes. Do I remember seeing him 9 months later running 4 miles with us, you know, in Fort Polk, Louisiana? Also, yes. But yeah, that also just goes to the mental health piece kind
Yeah,
of
he
touched
walked.
on earlier. Yeah, he ran. He ran 4 miles.
Oh, afterwards?
Yeah, with 2 prosthetic legs.
Wow,
It was very cool.
incredible.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's all just, you know, taking care of your mental health. So, you know, for a bit, I would give it to emotional behavioral health, EBH, going for a tune-up, because I need to be on my best game if I'm going to be leading people, right? You know, leaders, we don't really take enough care of ourselves, I don't think. You can't take care of others if you're not also making sure that you're good. How can I tell my soldiers who are struggling mentally to visit a behavioral specialist if I'm not going to, and I know that I need it, you know? See, I'd go for a while there every week, every other week for 30 minutes to an hour. I feel like I'm pretty good now, though.
Is there anything that you feel like you'd like to share with us that you have not?
I mean, I've really touched on the majority of my service. I chose this job in recruiting. It didn't choose me. So I know a lot of your recruiters that you might see, they were tasked, whereas I asked to be a part of this job.
Okay.
I jokingly say it was about the weather, but truly, man, I would not take a job in Army recruiting if I didn't believe in it.
Right.
That seems just so disingenuous to hate your job and to look, you know, men and women in the eye and be like, you need to do this. I hate it, but you need to know. I love my job. I love what I do.
Okay.
And so whenever I'm talking to people, that's what I tell them. I truly do love what I do. And you know, the Army's opened up so many doors and opportunities to me that I never would have dreamed about, you know, 10, 15 years ago.
Right. Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to thank you for a great interview.
I appreciate you.
All right? Can I get everybody for a group photo, please?